everybody, and welcome to this episode of RMS TV. It's good to have you with us. Today, I'm going to talk just a little bit about working with buyers. Buyers can be great. Working with buyers and helping someone actually find that home of their dreams can be really exciting. One of the best things we can do. It can also be very frustrating. And why the difference? Well, the big difference is really in how you approach working with that buyer. Do we allow the buyer to be in control, or do we actually want to lead the buyer down an entirely different path? Let me give you an example. Most every time we meet someone for the first time, it's through a phone call, through a yard sign, through advertising. But we'll get a phone call from a buyer that says something like, "Hey, Lloyd, I'd really like to see this property on 123 Main Street this afternoon at 5. Can you show that to me?" Well, most real estate agents that I knew would just jump on the opportunity and say, "Absolutely. I'd be happy to show you that property. I'll meet you there at 5 o'clock. Now, right off the bat, who's in control of that situation? I can guarantee it's not you. And yes, there are times when we're going to have to jump through that hoop and go meet a buyer. But I think before we do that, it's always good to at least find out whether or not that person has been qualified for the purchase. So, Mr. Buyer, before we arrange to meet later on this afternoon, can I ask you a quick question? Have you been approved, pre-approved, by a lender to make sure that you can afford this particular property? Typically, the answer would be no. Sometimes it's yes, great. I feel a little more comfortable going to meet that consumer. But I really believe if we can get the consumer into the office prior to looking at homes, it really makes the whole process so much better for them and for you. If we can't get that person into the office prior to that first showing, I kind of have the one-time rule. I'll meet you at the property, and then we'll look at the property, and then we're going to have a little conversation about how I work. How does that sound to you? So always try to get the consumer into the office. It's the old CITO, come into the office. There are lots of trainers out there, by the way, who say, if that person won't come into the office to talk to you, they're really not a buyer. There is some truth to that. So how do I get that person to come into the office? I've got a great dialogue here. It's actually from Buffini and Company, but I'd like to read it. And we need to get pretty good at having this conversation with people to see if we can't get them into the office prior to that first visit, or certainly immediately after that first visit. So here you go. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. From my experience in this industry, I've seen buyers try to jump straight into the decision-making process without all the tools and information they need. At the end of the day, buying a home is a big deal to you, and it's a big deal to me. And I certainly don't want any self-inflicted wounds to occur during the process. To gain every possible advantage, it's important to come into my office for 20 to 30 minutes so we can lay out a roadmap for your home purchase. During our meeting, we'll talk about a range of topics from how the home search process is supposed to go to financing and mortgage options. We'll examine property improvements that make sense, as well as customizing a search process so that you see all the homes you want to see and very few of the ones you don't. I'll also outline a step-by-step game plan to find the home that fits your criteria for price, location, and style. And I'll let you know what to expect during the process. Most people buy 2 or 3 homes in their lifetime, but this is something I do every day. And I can assure you these will be the most important 20 to 30 minutes you'll invest in the search of a home. So when's the best time for us to meet? I have an opening tomorrow. I've got an opening over the weekend, which works best for you. It's a really good dialogue, and I think it really sets the stage for that really important meeting. Now, once we get that person to come into the office, that's a really big deal because we have the opportunity now to actually share our brand new buyer presentation with them. It's called the purchasing pathway. It leads them through the entire process, just as we promised in that dialogue. At that point, the control that I talked about earlier comes back to you. You're in control. But the whole process, not only for you, but for them, is much more streamlined, and I can tell you, very much more productive. So when we're working with buyers, which is a wonderful thing, let's try to make sure we stay in control. Let's not let the buyer take over from the very beginning. And if they do, and if we have to meet them once and show them the property, we'll have an opportunity to talk to them about a better way. That's my advice for today. And we'll talk more about this in coming days, I'm sure. But for now, have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you soon, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.